Now, U.S. military flights have ended, and our troops have departed Afghanistan. A new chapter of America's engagement with Afghanistan has begun. It's one in which we will lead with our diplomacy. The military mission is over. A new diplomatic mission has begun.
America's longest war finally comes to an end. The United States military has completed evacuation efforts in Afghanistan. The question is, what about the Americans who are still there? Plus, in Louisiana, the storm is over, but the recovery from Hurricane Ida has just begun. The question is, do we have a full picture of the damage yet? And the European Union takes the United States off its safe travel list amid a surge in COVID cases. The question is, will we see countries issue new travel restrictions for Americans? It is way too early for this. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to Way Too Early, the show that is coming to you from the great city of Los Angeles live this morning. I'm Jacob Soboroff on this Tuesday, August the 31st, and we will start with the news. After nearly 20 years, the mission in Afghanistan is over. The last American troop boarded a C-17 aircraft shortly before midnight in Kabul last night, marking the end of a chaotic exit from the country. In total, the State Department says more than 122,000 people were evacuated since late July, including more than 6,000 Americans. But despite the massive number airlifted out, officials estimate between 1 and 200 U.S. citizens were left behind.
Look, there's a lot of heartbreak associated with this departure. We did not get everybody out that we wanted to get out. But I think if we'd stayed another 10 days, Louis, we wouldn't have gotten everybody out that we wanted to get out. And there still would have been people who would have been disappointed with that. It's a tough situation. But I want to emphasize again that simply because we have left, that doesn't mean the opportunities for both Americans that are in Afghanistan that want to leave and Afghans who want to leave, they will not be denied that opportunity.
The United States leaves Afghanistan in the same position as when the mission first started in 2001, with the country under Taliban control. The group stormed back to power this month at a speed that surprised even the top American generals. As the last plane took off yesterday, Taliban fighters could be seen shooting fireworks and guns into the sky to celebrate. The U.S. military likely abandoned hundreds of millions of dollars worth of aircraft and armored vehicles and sophisticated defensive systems in the departure from Afghanistan based on equipment numbers provided by CENTCOM Commander General Frank McKenzie. Much of what was left was rendered inoperable.
We have also demilitarized equipment that we did not bring out of the airport, 27 Humvees, a little tactical vehicle that will never be driven again. And additionally, on the ramp at HKIA are a total of 73 aircraft. Those aircraft will never fly again when we left. They'll never be able to be operated by anyone. Most of them were non-mission capable to begin with, but certainly they'll never be able to be flown again.
70 mine-resistant vehicles were also left behind and destroyed. USA Today reports they cost approximately $1 million apiece. Joining us now from Doha, Qatar, NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez. Raf, good morning to you. The obvious question I think that's on a lot of people's minds is what is next for those Americans, particularly in the wake of that attack at the Abbey Gate left behind in Afghanistan?
Jacob, good morning. You heard Secretary Blinken say last night there is no deadline on American efforts to try to get those U.S. citizens out of the country. General Frank McKenzie last night gave the number as the very low hundreds. The State Department saying somewhere in between 100 and 200 Americans still in the country who are trying to get out. And there is a wide variety of reasons why they may not have been able to. These may be people who were outside of Kabul, who were not able to travel through Taliban territory to get to the airport. These may be U.S. citizens who knew that they could get on the plane, but they would not be able to bring their family members with them. So there is a very long and complicated path ahead. Secretary Blinken saying the effort to get those people out does not finish just because U.S. military troops have left. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul is relocating to here in Qatar, and the U.S. and its allies say they will bring every lever of diplomatic and political pressure to bear to make sure that the Taliban stands by its commitment to allow Americans and Afghans to leave the country, to give them safe passage. But of course, the Western allies have lost a lot of their leverage by withdrawing U.S. troops, and it is not clear if the Taliban can be held to account on that. Jacob?
Raf, with the Taliban now in control again in Afghanistan for the first time in almost 2 decades, I know we're starting to get the first reactions about the conditions on the ground in Kabul. Tell us about that.
Yeah, a Taliban official telling NBC News this morning, Afghanistan has its independence. As far as they are concerned, they have outfought and outlasted the world's major superpower. They have thrown off the American occupation, and they have reclaimed their country a couple of decades after they feel they did the same thing with the Soviet Union. We are back, as you said, to where we were in 2001. The Taliban is in complete control of the country. They say they have changed. They say women will be allowed more freedoms than they had previously. They will be allowed to continue to go to university. They will no longer have to wear the full burqa face covering. There are things that the Taliban wants from the international community which give some hope that they may stand by those commitments, including international recognition and the unfreezing of Afghanistan's monetary funds. Jacob?
NBC's Raf Sanchez in Doha, Qatar. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Now to Hurricane Ida. Of course, it caused catastrophic damage throughout Louisiana. At least 1 million people are still right now in the dark. No power anywhere in the city of New Orleans. And it could be weeks before that comes back. The death toll currently stands at 2, but the governor warns that number is going to likely rise. NBC News senior national correspondent Tom Yamas reports from New Orleans.
Desperation in Louisiana.
The storm just came, took everything.
You don't have anything left?
Took everything.
Entire communities cut off, power down, and for many, no cell signal to call for help. Officials in an urgent race to find terrified families still trapped.
It was the worst thing ever. I got my baby out, though. I wasn't going to stop until I get my baby out.
In Laplace, people rescued from their homes using high water vehicles and boats, including Donrella Brown, who is pregnant.
How high was the water?
The water was to my stomach.
So your stomach, where you're carrying your baby, was underwater? Mm-hmm. What were you thinking?
I couldn't do nothing but crying.
Brown's message to officials tonight:
I'm about to be a mother of 7. I have nothing. We need help.
Others turn to social media. Tiffany Miller, also in Laplace, begging for help while trapped in her attic in the dark.
Water came in, and it came in kind of quick. So the only thing that we could do was climb in the attic.
So far, 5,000 National Guard troops have been activated. 25,000 cleanup crews from 30 states are on the way. Officials warning conditions are still very dangerous, including possible alligator-infested floodwaters. And the death toll here is likely to rise.
What I can tell you is that the last couple of days have not been good for our state, and for the next several days and weeks, they will not be easy either.
The damage to the power grid alone is described as catastrophic. The entire city of New Orleans without electricity. Some outages could last for weeks. This is a massive electrical tower that collapsed during Hurricane Ida with several feeder bands all throughout New Orleans. A lot of people think this may be one of the epicenters of the city's power problems. So many anxious about how long this could last. You look at this and you're thinking we're not going to have power for weeks, if not months.
Exactly. Exactly right. It's going to be a long time before they have power here again.
All of it beginning Sunday as the powerful storm made landfall. So the eye wall of Hurricane Ida is now approaching New Orleans, and we are feeling those hurricane gusts somewhere around 85 miles per hour. And the sad part is things are only going to get worse. And they did. Winds reaching more than 170 miles an hour on the coast. Power lines like these stood no chance. The rain relentless, testing the state's upgraded levees, which thankfully appeared to have held. At the height of the storm, this woman, a nurse, had to be pulled from her car. With daylight, the damage revealed roofs torn from building after building, trees down everywhere. Massive debris seen all across New Orleans streets. This boat tossed into the middle of a highway.
We know Hurricane Ida had the potential to cause massive damage, and that's exactly what we saw.
Some communities like Grand Isle along the Gulf Coast completely cut off. And with power out and communications down, it's still impossible to assess the full impact of this monster storm.
Our thanks to NBC's Tom Yamas for that report. Let's bring in meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, you tracked this thing relentlessly before, during, and after landfall. We talked about how it was going to have a long tail. How are things looking today?
We're still going to see new communities getting flash flooding. I'm hearing reports of a road that was washed out in Mississippi, 2 fatalities, 10 injuries. So we're not done with all the damage yet. We still have some flash flood warnings down along the coastal areas. And a lot of that rain that fell has now moved into the rivers. And we have major and moderate river flooding all through areas of Mississippi. Everywhere you see here in blue, from just north of New Orleans around Hammond, the Hattiesburg area, near Meridian, Columbus, and then that maroon color, we're still under a flash flood warning from a heavy rain band overnight around Biloxi, Gulfport, and up to Monroeville in Alabama. So we're not completely done. And then when you talk about 1 million people without power, I mean, it's hot in the South. I mean, it's humid after that storm moved through. It's going to feel like 100 degrees this afternoon in the shade in New Orleans. It's not going to get any better as we go into Wednesday either. The heat index is going to feel like 101. The temperature will be like 90 degrees in the afternoon. And as you expect, it stays hot and humid right through the end of the week. So just day after day, and especially at night, very difficult to sleep when you have the temperature of 80 degrees and it's extremely humid in your house or in your apartment. So what's left with the storm? Big rainmaker. Watch out for flash flooding today, and flooding reports out of areas like Nashville, 30-mile-per-hour winds. So the winds are no longer an issue, but we still have 79 million people under flash flood watches because of this storm. And that heavy rain is going to head up into the northeast as we go into Wednesday and Wednesday night. So here's the additional rainfall forecast. Notice about 1 to 3 inches possible from Tennessee up into West Virginia. But look what happens in areas of Pennsylvania, northern Virginia. Look at Harrisburg. Predictions up to 6 inches of rain. Philadelphia, almost 4 inches. New York City, 5 inches of rain. That's going to cause significant flooding Wednesday into Wednesday night throughout areas of the Northeast. So we are not done with this storm yet, Jacob. Obviously, the winds have caused extreme damage in Louisiana, but this flash flooding threat is going to move right into New England as we go throughout the next 36 hours.
Not done by a long shot. Bill Cairns, thank you very much. Good to see you this morning. And one more weather story for you guys. This one here in California. The Lake Calder fire is accelerating, now forcing evacuations in South Lake Tahoe, a city of about 22,000 people. This is a big deal. Roads were backed up yesterday as cars rushed to get out. By last night, the fire had crossed 2 state highways, burning mountain cabins on its way towards the Tahoe Basin. This comes as the region faces strong winds, extremely low humidity as well. The Calder fire has consumed nearly 200,000 acres, and now it's only 15% contained. Still ahead here on Way Too Early, the latest on the growing number of COVID cases across America and the impact on already strained hospitals, plus the new recommendation from the European Union to ban travel for American tourists. Those stories and much, much more when we come right back.
Our world is facing some big challenges. Chuck Todd breaks them down. A deep dive into a new topic.
Instead of covering all the big stories, we're going to cover one single subject impacting American politics.
Exploring and explaining the critical issues that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 2 are now available on demand on Peacock.
Hey, it's Chris Hayes. This week on my podcast, Why Is This Happening? I'll be talking with Pulitzer Prize-winning national security reporter and author Spencer Ackerman on his incredible new book, Reign of Terror, How the 9/11 Era Destabilized America and Produced Trump.
If your goal is to stop Americans from dying from terrorism, that United States policy leads the way to creating the market for people to sign up for fantasies like bin Laden, not because of any true, enduring, necessary security interest, but because the United States takes it upon itself to police the world.
That's This Week on Why Is This Happening? Search for Why Is This Happening wherever you're listening right now and subscribe.
Welcome back to Way Too Early. America is facing a growing crisis as COVID-19 hospitalizations reach their highest levels since the winter. NBC News correspondent Kristen Dahlgren explains.
Miss Nancy.
Hospitals being pushed to the brink, averaging 100,000 hospitalized with COVID, higher than any point since last winter when the vaccine wasn't available for most. In Oregon, the National Guard is now on hand as hospitals overflow. In Florida, where 93% of ICU beds are now full, there were over 150,000 new cases last week, a rise of over 1,000% since June.
If we really got the overwhelming majority of those 80 million people vaccinated, you would see a dramatic turnaround in the dynamics of the outbreak.
In San Diego, hospitals are now delaying some elective surgeries to help conserve critical resources. While in Texas, Michelle Pouget is seeing the toll firsthand. Her son Daniel died not of COVID, but a treatable gallstone pancreatitis. There were just no ICU beds available for the veteran.
They had called all the hospitals in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado.
By the time he got treatment, it was too late.
I just don't think people realize, how important this is. It could be your mother, your son, your daughter.
A mother's pain, a warning, as the pandemic again pushes the system beyond its limits. Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News.
Meanwhile, guys, the European Union is recommending member states reinstate travel restrictions for unvaccinated Americans due to rising COVID cases here. The European Council of the EU removed the U.S. from what they call a safe list of countries whose residents can travel without requirements like quarantine, like testing. The change is not mandatory. Each member state imposes its own travel rules. They choose whether or not to follow those guidelines. And then the council updates the safe travel list based on criteria relating to COVID infection levels every 2 weeks. Here in the U.S., the Department of Education has launched a civil rights investigation into whether states that have banned mask mandates are discriminating against students with disabilities who could be at a higher risk for severe illness from COVID. The department's Office for Civil Rights has opened directed investigations, they call them, in 5 states: Iowa, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Utah. All of them have barred schools from requiring masks among students and staff. While the agency says they're closely monitoring other states, federal investigations haven't yet been opened in Florida, Texas, Arkansas, nor Arizona because their bans on indoor mask mandates are not currently being enforced. Stick around here with Way Too Early because still ahead, defending U.S. Open champ Naomi Osaka scores a first-round win. We got that. We got lots of other highlights from Flushing. Coming up next in sports. Don't go anywhere.
Looking for more Dateline mysteries? Peacock's on the case with a new streaming channel. Dateline 24/7. True crime stories from the True Crime Original.
Go to peacocktv.com and sign up for free.
Time for a little sports, ladies and gentlemen. The reigning U.S. Open champ, the 3-seed Naomi Osaka, easily won her first-round match, 6-4, 6-1, to kick off the first day of the Open in New York City. Things were not as easy for 17-year-old Coco Gauff, who lost her first set, but she battled back. She got a big boost from the crowd to advance to the second round. And the best match of the day goes to 34-year-old Andy Murray, who fought for nearly 5 hours before falling to 3-seed Stefanos Tsitsipas. Murray, who won the Open in 2012, complained afterwards his opponent unfairly gained an advantage by taking a lengthy bathroom break, which is not a bad idea. I might go do that in the commercial. Like much of New Orleans, by the way, in all seriousness, the Saints were forced to evacuate due to Hurricane Ida. The team's in Dallas practicing for the next few days at the home of the Cowboys. They were forced to cancel their preseason game on Saturday against the Arizona Cardinals, and they relocated to Texas. The Saints are scheduled to open the season against the Green Bay Packers at home on September 12th, but it's unclear if they will be able to play at the Superdome, which luckily didn't suffer any major damage, unlike everybody remembers during Hurricane Katrina. Let's turn now to baseball, where the playoff race is heating up as the season is down to its final weeks. The Red Sox took on the red-hot Rays at home, who got on the board in the first, but the Sox tied it up 1-1 in the top of the second. Bottom of the eighth, the Rays up 4-1 when Wander Franco rips a line drive to left, scoring 2 runs, and the Rays go on to win 6-1. The Sox have dropped the last 2. They're dealing with a potential COVID outbreak. Closer Matt Barnes became the 4th player to land on the COVID injured list in recent days, joining Kike Hernandez, Christian Arroyo, and pitcher Martin Perez, who all have reportedly tested positive. Now here to Southern California, Anaheim, where the Yankees look to rebound after 2 straight losses, and Anthony Rizzo got the Bombers started in the top of the first. They'd end the first up 2-0. We jump to the bottom of the 4th, where the bases are loaded for Jack Mayfield, who hits a bomb grand slam off Yanks starter Corey Kluber, who was making his first start in 3 months. And now to the 7th inning, where Giancarlo Stanton crushes a 2-run home run to tie it at 7 apiece. But the Angels get an RBI single in the next inning. They hold on to hand the Yankees their 3rd straight loss. And can I just say, the Dodgers have better records than any of these teams. Maybe we've got to talk about them tomorrow. Still ahead, President Biden's going to give remarks later today about the end of the war in Afghanistan. We're going to get a preview of that coming up next. But first, before we go to break, we want to know, as always, what are you doing awake right now? It's the middle of the night here in L.A. Email your reasons to way too early at msnbc.com. You could tweet me at Jacob Soboroff using the hashtag way too early. My mom's trying to figure out how to use Twitter right now. We're going to read some of those answers later on in the show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Way Too Early. It is 5:30 in the morning on the East Coast, 2:30 out west. Good morning to those of you just getting on board. I'm Jacob Soboroff. After 20 years of fighting, the longest war in U.S. history is effectively over. The final U.S. military plane carrying Americans from Afghanistan left Kabul last night, bringing an end to a hasty evacuation and those efforts that ultimately left behind tens of thousands of Afghans desperate to leave the country. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has the latest.
The United States ended its 20-year war in Afghanistan with the conclusion of the largest non-combatant airlift in American history.
I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission.
123,000 people flown out of the now Taliban-controlled country. The Taliban firing barrages of celebratory gunfire after the last aircraft departed. But not all Americans were able to get out.
The citizens that were not brought out number in the low, very low hundreds. I believe that we're going to be able to get those people out.
It's been 2 decades of military deployments. 2,461 Americans killed. 1,144 NATO allies killed. More than 48,000 Afghans killed. 300,000 Afghan soldiers trained only to collapse when confronted. About $1 trillion spent and more to come to care for the wounded. Afghanistan handed back to the very same Islamic fundamentalists the United States drove from power just weeks after 9/11. A generation of Afghans raised with expectations of freedom and fundamental rights under an umbrella of American protection. ISIS taking parting shots, hoping to etch their dark name in history, firing rockets at the airport to no effect. The U.S. firing back, the military says, against an ISIS car bomb. Afghans say 10 civilians were killed. A war once called Operation Enduring Freedom, proving to be neither enduring nor leaving a legacy of freedom.
This afternoon, President Biden will address the nation on his decision not to extend the U.S. presence in Afghanistan. Despite facing criticism from both sides of the aisle, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters yesterday that the president has no second thoughts.
president stands by his decision to bring our men and women home from Afghanistan, because if he had not, his view and the view of many experts and military out there is we would have sent tens of thousands potentially, or thousands at least, more troops back into harm's way, risking more lives and more people to fight a war the Afghans were not willing to fight themselves. Nothing has changed in that regard.
In a statement last night, President Biden thanked the service members who aided in the evacuation, writing in part, "The past 17 days have seen our troops execute the largest airlift in U.S. history, evacuating over 120,000 U.S. citizens of our allies and Afghan allies of the United States. They have done it with unmatched courage, professionalism, and resolve. Now our 20-year military presence in Afghanistan has ended." Joining us now, White House reporter for The Washington Post, Ann Gearan. She's an MSNBC contributor. Ann, good morning to you. What does your reporting, Ann, tell you about the inclination and really the ability of the Taliban to allow the U.S. to remove the remaining people who still want to leave? There's this 97-country agreement that's supposed to allow for this to happen, but will it?
Well, Jacob, I mean, the latest we have on that really came from General McKenzie, and you played that clip a little bit ago. He thinks that the approximately 200, they don't know exactly how many U.S. citizens still in the country who want to leave can, if they choose to. The main reason they haven't left so far is that they, in most cases, according to the Pentagon, had decided not to leave right now. That's usually for family reasons. A lot of these people are dual nationals. They have families and businesses in Afghanistan. They have lots of people in their family who do not have the right paperwork to be able to leave. So that's a tough position for a family member to be in. As for the Taliban and what leverage the U.S. has to get these last people out, it's the same leverage that the United States and, frankly, Europe, Australia, a number of other countries with equities in Afghanistan, same leverage they have, which is diplomatic and economic primarily. The Taliban would like very much to get a government up and running. To do that, they're going to need money, which they don't have much of. They're broke. They would like to have assets unfrozen and loans unfrozen at the World Bank. The United States can play a role in that. They'd like the UN to help. The United States can play a role in that. And you know, that's an arm's length kind of leverage, but it is leverage, and presumably that is exactly what will be applied now to whatever government forms. There isn't really a Taliban government yet to talk to. There are some individual leaders, but it'll be those people that the United States talks to and says, look, if you want to be accepted on the world stage, you need to do a number of things, including letting people leave who want to leave.
Yeah, and you talk about leverage with the Taliban. Your paper is reporting that Russia is asking the West to unfreeze the assets of Afghanistan, and President Biden did pledge to continue humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. So is there a specific plan? What will it look like? And how and when will that move forward with the Taliban government beyond, securing continued evacuations and dealings over, essentially money?
Yeah, the plan is still in the works. We've had a couple of these large multi-country statements. The first one came a couple of weeks ago, which warned the Taliban to keep letting people out and not close off access. And the other came, as you referenced, just a couple of days ago as the end was near, essentially saying to the Taliban, if you want international recognition, you have to adhere to a lot of international norms. That's it so far. We know that different countries will approach the question of diplomatic recognition and assets differently, and the United States is likely to be near the end of that line.
The Washington Post, Ann Gearan. Ann, thanks for getting up extra early with us this morning. Good to see you. Still ahead, a totally different delivery for a NASA astronaut celebrating her 50th birthday. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back on Way Too Early. All right, time for my favorite part of the show, something totally different. An astronaut's going to kick us off aboard the International Space Station. This astronaut got a very special delivery for a milestone birthday. Her name is Megan MacArthur, and she received a SpaceX cargo delivery filled with ice cream and other treats for her 50th birthday. She radioed back to Earth after the capsule autonomously docked, and she said, quote, "No one ever sent me a spaceship for my birthday before. I appreciate it." The capsule launched on Sunday carrying 4,800 pounds of supplies. There were lemons and tomatoes, avocados, and also a human-sized robotic arm and some ants, too, creating quite the zero-gravity picnic. How about this? Nearly 6 years after leaving The Daily Show, Jon Stewart, the one and only, is coming back to TV.
What the hell happened to my face? No! Guess who's back again? I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Why would I go back to a visual medium? I could have done a podcast.
The problem with Jon Stewart is a multiple-season, single-issue series. It's going to take a deep dive on issues driving the national conversation, and it will premiere on Apple TV Plus starting September 30th. They're going to release new episodes every other week, along with an accompanying podcast. Nike is shutting its corporate office for a week for its employees' mental health. In an effort to combat burnout, the company announced this break to give employees time to rest, time to recharge. In a LinkedIn post, Nike senior manager confirmed the pause, writing in part, quote, "Our senior leaders are all sending a clear message. Take time to unwind, de-stress, and spend time with your loved ones. Do not work." Nike is not the only one doing this. They follow in the footsteps of companies like Bumble, LinkedIn Corporate too, all prioritizing the mental health of its workers in a time of pandemic-fueled burnout. And here's another thing to make you smile. A young rhinoceros just celebrated his second birthday at a zoo in Omaha. Marshall is his name. His mom spent the day knocking over festive boxes, each including gifts and special treats for the rhino calf. Marshall is an endangered Indian rhinoceros and was the first rhino born at the zoo. But do not let his age fool you guys. He already weighs 1 ton. Good on you, Marshall. Looks like a nice life. Still ahead, a look at one organization that is helping with hurricane relief efforts in Louisiana. They're giving back to those hit the hardest by the storm. You're not going to want to miss that. We're back in a moment on MSNBC. Sad news now on Way Too Early. A second death related to Hurricane Ida is now confirmed. The Louisiana Department of Health is reporting that an unidentified man drowned after he tried to get his car through heavy floodwaters in New Orleans. Now that the storm's passed, the focus moves to rescue and recovery. Hundreds of people trapped by Ida have been saved by rescue boats and by helicopters. Crews have begun the long work of restoring power to more than 1 million residents. Damage to the electrical grid is so severe, officials say it could be weeks before everything is back up and running. Dozens of people who rode out the storm on the barrier islands, and in particular Grand Isle, are still unable to leave as roads to that island remain impassable. And effects from the storm may reach further than flooding. 2 people are dead. 10 more were injured after a highway in Mississippi collapsed. Damage caused by Hurricane Ida is thought to have played a factor. One of the groups, and you might have heard of this, working to help people hurt by Hurricane Ida, is called World Central Kitchen, founded by chef Jose Andres. The organization travels all over the world, bringing hot, nutritious meals to those who need it most.
We're reaching as many communities as we can, as quick as we can, especially the people that lost everything. That's the World Central Kitchen way. That's what we do. That's how we do it. We are not going to stop.
Joining us now, CEO of World Central Kitchen, Nate Mook. Nate, good morning to you. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. I wanted to chat with you and give our viewers an idea of how exactly World Central Kitchen is working with local organizations on the ground right now in New Orleans and along the Gulf Coast.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Jacob. We are really in full force right now. We have a kitchen active in New Orleans. We started cooking yesterday, just hours after the storm had passed. We are preparing thousands of hot meals, sandwiches, fruit, really trying to get food out into the areas, as you saw, that were hit hard. Chef Jose went down to Homa yesterday, which is about an hour and a half southwest of New Orleans. And we're also distributing to a number of residents, first responders, and those still here in the city of New Orleans, which has no power right now. So it's a pretty serious situation.
I know Chef Jose, before he was in New Orleans, was in Haiti. Before that, I've seen you guys, myself, while I've been reporting in Mexico, helping migrants along the southern border. For people that want to get involved in World Central Kitchen, what should they do? How can they help from home?
Yeah, so the best way is to follow us on social media, follow World Central Kitchen, Chef Jose Andres. You can donate to our work. All of our efforts are powered by individuals, by donations. And we do have volunteer opportunities. We, hopefully we're not in your town, because if we are, generally something catastrophic has happened. But there are ways to get involved and volunteer. And we really appreciate that support. We're working with a lot of local organizations here in New Orleans. We have a number of volunteers helping us get meals out to those that need them. And, we appreciate all the support that folks give.
I wonder about what you said. It made me think that when you're on the ground somewhere, obviously something catastrophic has happened. You don't necessarily want to see World Central Kitchen on the ground. What does it say about the ability of sort of local agencies to handle these crises, that the work you are doing ultimately is so essential to help people in need?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges, Jacob, is, disasters are getting bigger because of climate change. We're seeing storms that are just overwhelming for local administrations. It's too much. And so there is that support needed from the outside, and organizations like ours, that are professional at what we do. We have an incredible team of chefs. We've got this relief team that can go in and really activate and also leverage local resources and assets. And we are not sort of also dealing with the situation. You have to remember, folks, for example, living in New Orleans, have families. They're also out of power. They're struggling to get through the day. And so, there is a lot of support needed because of the seriousness of the storms. And right now you have about 200,000 people that are without power in New Orleans for potentially weeks. We don't know yet. And that means no air conditioning, no food. A lot of places have no running water because the electrical pumps. So, we're really at the precipice of a really potentially serious situation here in New Orleans. And that's very hard for local leaders to handle on their own. But they are doing an amazing job. They're working very hard, nonstop. And we're here to complement and support those efforts.
As I said, I've seen you guys doing the work with my own eyes. You're doing God's work. Unfortunately, you shouldn't have to do it, but we all appreciate you. CEO of World Central Kitchen, Nate Mook, thank you for waking up early with us. Appreciate it. And for those of you at home, earlier in the show, we asked, why are you awake? What are you doing up? Here are a couple of your answers. Gail's up way too early because she said, just got done canning 4 batches of salsa while I was waiting to watch you. How do I get some of that salsa? That sounds delicious. Here's one from Darcy. Darcy emails, up early with the newest member of our family, Marble. Oh, hey, Marble, a 5-month-old rescue who is all kitten and lots of love. And how about Lori from Southern California? She tweeted this. It has been so hot lately that the best time to do household chores is in the middle of the night. Oh, good on you, Lori. And further north, on a more serious note, Mike emails, my wife and I are awake monitoring the Calder fire that's moving toward our home in North Lake Tahoe. We're thinking of you guys up there in Northern California. Hang in there. And coming up next here on Way Too Early, the Axios One Big Thing. And after that on Morning Joe, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby will be a guest of the program on the heels of the final evacuation flight from Kabul. Plus, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who served in Afghanistan. He's also going to be a guest. Morning Joe is just moments away.
Dateline, the true crime original. Every Friday, you'll find a mystery to be solved, a story to be told, and justice to be served. Every Friday, an all-new Dateline with a twist. The True Crime Original. Every Friday at 9/8 Central, only on NBC.